Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump just continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you for Better Off Dead College Football Edition, Week 11. Yeah, this is going to suck, obviously. I suck. Life sucks. Everything sucks. My headphones suck, so I'm not going to use them. This hoodie obviously sucks. Go follow the DGen Weekly. This is his hoodie. Not his personally. Ooh, I'm going to smell it. Smell his musk all over me. No, he's solid dude. He follows me, so I appreciate that. He is a degenerate gambler, obviously. You can go follow him. He's pretty funny. Unfortunately, he is a Notre Dame football fan, though, so boo. You could boo me because my picks were fucking horrible today, 2-6. I told you there was going to be some regression. Some of them were legitimately bad. Some of them were bullshit losses. Furman, I mean, they got off to a terrible start. What can you do? They got close later in the game. They just couldn't get it done. That one, I mean, I don't want to say it was necessarily wrong or right. I mean, it was close statistically. So that one is just, I don't know, kind of one that fell the wrong way. College basketball, we're talking about Georgia Tech. We got an easy win, blowout win on Georgia Tech. The market read actually flipped and went completely well. There's like no market read early in the day, right? Like you can see where the line moved, but other than that, like you don't know where the percentages are going to be until later in the day. So it's almost like I'm like kind of blind market reading, but I'm trying to just read the situations. So I don't know what the fuck I want to do. Like if I want to not give out like college basketball games in the morning, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is the way that I've always done it though, but I'm relying on the situations. And Oregon, I mean, I think they just barely won that game. So, but that game, if you look at what happened in that game, Oregon had a horrific shooting game in that game. I don't know what the hell that was. So, I mean, that one seems a little bit bullshitty to me. We got a win on the New York Rangers, which I think was legitimate. So I'll take that one. I think it was a fairly close game. I'll dig into the box score again. That was a win. New York Islanders, that was a loss. I will say that that game was at least closer than the score made it look. Statistically, it was a close game. The money came in on the Islanders side. Like that game was up to like minus 150 on the money line by the time the game went off. So when it gets into that range, I usually recommend playing them to win in regulation just to get the price down. You would have lost that anyway, but you would have lost less money. So that's my recommendation there. NBA, I seriously think we should have had 2 NBA wins out of the 3, and instead we went 0-3. The NBA was obviously the worst part of tonight, not even close. Washington never should have been a play. I apologize for that. They fucking suck. Yeah, I mean, they haven't been competitive enough. I mean, they looked competitive in a couple of games, but I shouldn't have done it. The other 2 should have probably been wins, though. The Atlanta Hawks and the Charlotte Hornets, they both won the rebounding battle, I think somewhat substantially as well, and they both looked like they were going to have shots to do it, and neither happened. The money kind of looked like it came in against the Atlanta side as far as the cash percentage, but the line moved towards them. I do think there was some actual money on Atlanta, and again, I think that was kind of a bullshit loss. If you look at it statistically, they shot horribly in that game, just like complete outlier, and they were up against like a really high 3-point percentage on the other side. And the same thing happened in the Charlotte game. Charlotte, by the way, that number moved up. Like, you could have gotten +7 on that when the game went off, although it wound up not even mattering. That one I didn't really expect to move up like that, really, though. I don't think there were any, like, injuries that came into play, really, to move that. I don't know why that line moved as much as it did. Didn't really expect that, so I assume most people probably were somewhere between 5, 6 on that, whatever. 7, key number in basketball, but in this case, dude, they were in that game in the fourth quarter, too. Like, it was they were within that spread, I think, in the fourth quarter, and then still didn't get it done. In that game, horrible shooting percentage for Charlotte in that game. I think there was just a ridiculous 3-point percentage on the other side again on Miami. I think Charlotte dominated the rebounds, though, in that game, which is the most predictable stat and the thing that is the best predictor. So I'm pretty pissed. I think Charlotte, like the market read was all good on that one, too. It looked like the actual money came in on that side. I thought that was the best of the three. I thought that was a great situational play there. I mean, you can't win them all, but I'm fucking pissed. Charlotte and Atlanta, I think both should have been wins. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm still up in the NBA this season, but 0-3, that doesn't happen often for me in NBA. Dirty Sock, what's up, man? Thank you, sir. Yeah, the Rangers won. That's not going to save me. Today is one of those days where I'm like about to jump off a fucking bridge. Let's go into college football. I don't want the show to run long here. It seems like it's a little bit of a smaller college football board here. I don't know. I also have this Tulane-Memphis game. I think I have it on ESPN right now. Tulane was blowing them out of the building, and now all of a sudden it's like a close game. I think Tulane is still going to wind up covering, which was my lean in the game, but it's getting like really crazy late in the game. All right, let's talk about all these games tomorrow. You know me, I talk about basically all the ranked matchups. I'm going to try to give opinions on basically all of them. Fox at noon, we do have Indiana, number 2 in the country, undefeated against Penn State, who obviously have been completely off the rails and still don't even have a win in the Big Ten. But I will say that when you have a team like Penn State and they know their season is over and whatever, one of the types of games they will try to get up for is a game like this. Like, this is going to be like their last home game, I think, against a really big opponent. So I expect them to show up. Whether or not they can actually do anything and hang within this number is kind of a different story. Indiana, they basically have to keep winning because I think they don't actually even face Ohio State during the regular season. They just got to keep winning. I mean, they're undefeated right now. They want to make sure that they get into the Big Ten title game, obviously, and make sure that they get a playoff bid. So this is basically their last remaining big game as well. So I'm not really jumping out of my seat to fade Indiana here either because I expect both teams are going to show up for this game. So then it just becomes a matter of there's probably like a little bit of line value taking the points with Penn State just because they've looked so bad recently. At some point, you got to think they're going to step it up a little bit. I mean, their backup quarterback here, Grunkmeyer, who had to come in because Aller got hurt. I mean, he seems to be improving a little bit at least. He's got a couple of games under his belt now. I didn't think Aller was any good anyway. So, I mean, with Penn State, you're kind of relying on them to play defense, probably run the football a bit. Can they actually come within this number? I don't know. I would slightly lean to taking the points, in my opinion. The number has gone up on Indiana from 13 to 14.5. 81% of the tickets, 85% of the cash on them. They're looking like they're getting some of the cash right now, but I think maybe some of the money might have just been intentionally trying to drive the line up to 14.5 just to get extra line value, get through the key number there because it was close to the key number where the real move might wind up coming back in on the Penn State side, but I don't know. I don't know for sure if that's what's going to happen. I don't like it, really, so I'm going to stay away, but slightly into taking the points just because I think that that's where the value is going to be, and nobody's going to expect anything out of Penn State. And you know me, I go contrarian unless I have a reason to not do so. Also at noon, ESPN, Number 5, one-loss Georgia against Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State's sitting at 5 wins, and they don't have an easy remaining schedule. But you got to think that these games are going to matter to Mississippi State because this is a team that they have not made a bowl since, I believe, 2022. So Mississippi State making a bowl again, and they need one more win to do that. That would be a big deal for them. And they don't play any cupcakes. They got a home game here against Georgia. They have to go on the road to Missouri, and then they host Ole Miss to finish the season. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be the most difficult of those remaining games, probably the least likely for them to win. But they could potentially do it. They beat me last week, unfortunately. Arkansas looked like they were going to have the win and cover in that game. They were up multiple scores in the fourth quarter and imploded and blew that game. Very unfortunate. But what that did for Mississippi State is it ended a loss streak for them. I think they're going to show up, though, because this is a home game on ESPN against Georgia. I think you're going to get a good effort, at least out of Mississippi State here. So the question is going to be, can they hang with Georgia? And I think they might be able to. I mean, Mississippi State, you've seen... Well, I'm also going to show that I think Georgia's in a bad spot, but I'll show that in a minute. Mississippi State, I mean, they've been able to hang with some of these teams. They beat Arizona State at home, although Arizona State wasn't really deserving of being the 12th ranked team in the country. Mississippi State took Tennessee to overtime at home. They took Texas to overtime at home. So this Mississippi State team, I mean, they're not easy to beat at home. And they got the cowbells going off, in the stands. Everybody rings cowbells at Mississippi State. Georgia, I don't think they're in that great of a spot here, really, because they're coming off that big rivalry game, the world's largest backyard cocktail party or whatever the hell it's called. You're not allowed to call it the cocktail party anymore, but whatever. I don't even know what it's called now because everybody still calls it that. So they renamed it, but nobody even knows what the name of it is. That was a big game. It was probably a little bit bigger for Florida, though. So, I mean, you could argue that maybe because Georgia was favored and didn't cover, which was a win. My only win last week was the Florida cover there. You could argue that maybe Georgia wasn't totally paying attention and that they will bounce back. But I don't know because that's a big rivalry game. Both teams usually get up for that game. And Georgia does have Texas looming up next. So that's a big game as well. I think it is possible they overlook Mississippi State here. And Georgia has only played 2 road games all season, and they were close. They had to go to overtime against Tennessee, and then Auburn kind of got screwed by the refs in that one. As you remember, I gave out Auburn plus the points in that one, and they were within 3 points late in the game. Auburn was about to take a 17-0 lead in that game towards the end of the first half, and they got screwed out of a touchdown. So Georgia, they haven't been quite as good on the road. I know Mississippi State is the least of all those teams. Mississippi State is actually not as good as Auburn, in my opinion, or certainly they're not as good as Tennessee. But Georgia looks like they're in a bit of a sandwich spot. I don't think they're as good on the road. So I'll lean to Mississippi State in this one. The money looks like it's not agreeing with that right now. This one, I was considering making it a play, but it's not going to be. The money, for what it's worth, looks like it's disagreeing with me. 51% of the tickets, 65% of the cash on Georgia, up from 7.5 to 9.5. I don't know if this thing's going to hit 10, although if it hits 10, that's another key number and a little bit more value, I think, on the Mississippi State side if you do like it. Not going to be a play for me, though. BYU and Texas Tech will wind up being a play for me, so I'll skip that for now. Skip it. Into the 1 p.m. slate, number 1 undefeated Ohio State, who I think is indeed legitimately the number 1 team in the country, whereas I don't really think Indiana is actually the second best team, by the way. I think they're probably a top 5-ish team. I think there are a few teams that are better than them, though, including Ohio State, who I think is a legitimate number 1 team. Their only question mark, really, is that they have an inexperienced quarterback. But they've been rolling, obviously. They haven't faced a particularly difficult schedule, though. They're coming off blowing out Penn State, which has got to be at least satisfying, even though Penn State is having a down year. That's usually a big game. Now Ohio State's going on the road to Purdue. Ohio State really hasn't been terrible on the road by any means, so I don't know. I mean, they should be able to handle Purdue because Purdue sucks. But, of course, Ohio State's going to be laying a ton of points here. Purdue, I mean, they're not going anywhere. Even if they win out, which is not going to happen either, they still wouldn't even make a bowl. So at the very least, what you could say is that Purdue, if they're going to show up for any games at this point, it's going to be games like this against Ohio State. But Purdue did have one of those games last week, and they actually only lost by 5 to Michigan. So then you got to kind of expect Purdue, if you want Purdue here, you got to expect them to be able to put in a big effort 2 games in a row. Can they? I'm not so sure. Looks like a little bit of a difficult spot to me for Purdue. Ohio State is laying a ton of points, though. So, I mean, if you like Ohio State, they're going to have to basically, like, keep their foot on the gas the whole time, and they might not do that. Because Ohio State at this point, I mean, yeah, they're trying to make sure they make the Big Ten title game. They're trying to run the table, but they don't really need style points. So this might be a game where they can kind of get in, get out. They don't really need to cover the number here. So that's kind of the danger if you want to lay the points with Ohio State. They're up from 28.5 to 29.5. Huge number. 79% of tickets, 80% of the cash in them. It looks like the money's kind of coming in on Ohio State right now. I mean, this one, it's hard to even form an opinion on this one, really. The spot looks worse to me for Purdue, though. Although I guess you could argue Ohio State's just kind of feeling oversatisfied, overconfident after the win over Penn State. I don't know. So I can kind of see that argument, I guess. I mean, my tendency would be to take the points, though, just because that's the way that I do it. I tend to want to fade big public favorites like that. And the other thing, I guess, if you do want to take the points is that it is a low total at 48.5. So expecting a team to win by 30 when the total is 48.5 is a little bit more difficult, although it is certainly possible that Purdue winds up not even scoring in the game because they're that bad. So we will see. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk about the Ole Miss Citadel game. I mean, there's not even a line on it, I don't think. So whatever. Ole Miss is one of those teams. They get this weird cupcake game late in the season. Texas A&M and Missouri, I'm going to give out a play on that, so I'll wait. CBS, 3:30 p.m., we have number 9, one-loss Oregon against number 20 Iowa, who is a one-loss Big Ten team. So this is interesting, man. There's like an outside chance that Iowa can actually make the Big Ten title game. Probably not going to happen because right now you'd need Ohio State or Indiana to slip up at the very least, or you'd probably need both to do that and whatever. Iowa, because they lost head-to-head to Indiana, I think they can't overtake Indiana, and same with Oregon. So it's pretty unlikely that these teams are going to make the conference championship, but it's a little strange. Oregon, probably still trying to make the college football playoff at this point. Iowa probably doesn't have a shot at that, but I guess you could argue that maybe if they win this game, maybe there is kind of an outside shot that they could. But either way, I think it's a big game. I think both teams are going to show up for it. Number 9 against number 20. Both of these teams actually play good defense. So Oregon kind of under the radar defensively because I haven't really thought that their defense has been good. Like last year, I didn't think it was that good. This year, it's definitely improved. Iowa, we know, very good defense, and that remains the case. I don't really see a huge situational angle here. Oregon is coming out of a bye, and they went into the bye on a win streak. So I do talk about that. When a team goes into a bye on a win streak, it can kind of disrupt their momentum, and they can come out a little bit shaky, a little bit cold. So that is the spot for Oregon here. They are having to go on the road, although it hasn't really been an issue for them, as they did blow out Northwestern. They beat Penn State on the road as well, and they blew out Rutgers big time on the road. Although Iowa is probably actually at this point better than all 3 of those teams, including Penn State. So this is going to be a difficult one. On the road at Iowa against that defense, laying points against them, that's not easy. For Iowa, I believe they had a bye as well. Iowa went into a bye as well, and they went into a bye in a 3-game win streak. So they went into a bye at a bad time as well. So both teams went into the bye on a good note. So it could be a little bit of a momentum disruptor. Although Iowa went in on a more convincing win as they crushed Minnesota. Oregon just kind of had an easy, not great-looking win, really. A low-scoring win against Wisconsin going into the bye. So I guess you could argue maybe the bye helps Oregon a little bit more for that reason. But I still think it's going to kind of be a momentum stopper for both teams that can kind of just negate itself. So then all that being said, I mean, I kind of just wind up defaulting to an anti-public home underdog that I think just plays defense, and that is Iowa here. I would probably still make the argument that Iowa is the better of these two teams defensively, even though they're both actually good defensively. Oregon's up to a 6.5-point favorite from a 5-point favorite with 54% of the tickets as of right now on this website, at least. And 62% of the cash, though, on Iowa. So money's coming in on Iowa, and the total has crashed down from 45 to 41.5. So if you like the under, you've missed some value there. I mean, you can still get it under 41.5, maybe even 42. 41 is a key number. So if you like the under, you could maybe start looking towards that. I mean, I don't hate the under in this one. I do think it might be a surprisingly low-scoring game because both teams actually do play defense, and it might be kind of a playoff type of atmosphere here. And in a game where points are at a premium like that, that also makes me want to lean towards taking the points. So I will lean to taking the points with Iowa here. Not a play for me. I don't really see a situational angle here. The cash is coming in on Iowa for what it's worth, so the money looks like it's agreeing with it. The public probably doesn't think that's gonna happen. So that is my opinion in that game, though. Also 3:30 Eastern, ESPN, Syracuse, who is not going anywhere, up against Miami, who's number 18 in the country. For Syracuse, I mean, they're not going anywhere, but you got to think this is going to be one of their bigger games remaining. I mean, they do have Notre Dame up next, which is a big game as well, but they do have a bye between these two. So a game at Miami, Syracuse is probably going to get up for it at the very least. A Syracuse team that's very likely to not make a bowl this time, is they would need to win out, and that's not going to happen. They're not going to win on the road at Miami and at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame especially needs to run the table here, so that's not going to happen for Syracuse. But this is the type of game Syracuse will get up for, and everybody saw Syracuse, one of my losses last week, just look horrible against North Carolina on that Friday primetime game. And Syracuse either benched their quarterback or he got hurt. I don't even know which happened. Or actually, I guess it was Phil Yardy, actually. Phil Yardy, I guess, played the entire game, actually. I didn't even expect that would be the case. He was horrendous in that game. 4 for 18. What the hell is that? Take him out. I don't even care. As long as it's not him, they gotta put somebody else in, man. But I'm not playing this game anyway, so I don't care what they do. But Syracuse, I mean, that's one of the worst quarterback performances you'll ever see. North Carolina, though, with Bill Belichick, North Carolina's actually played decent defense this year. It's really been their offense that's been a major issue. But Syracuse coming off that ugly of a game, you got to think they're going to at least try to not embarrass themselves this time and maybe show up. And I think Miami is kind of in a bad spot here, man, because they just took a second ACC loss. And you could argue that's the dream crusher now, because look how many teams are ahead of them in the ACC now. Like, Miami would need, like, basically the majority of the teams ahead of them to lose more than they do for the remaining part of the slate here. And with Miami being a 2-loss team in the ACC, they're probably not going to make the playoff at this point either. And that was their goal, was to make the playoff, obviously. And it looks like they're going to fall short again for the second straight year. So they could be in a dream crusher. Miami could, because that loss to SMU last week in overtime might have ended their season. So that is the worry with Miami here. But one reason why they might actually still come and play in this game is because if you remember what happened last year, Miami went to Syracuse and Syracuse upset them. And that was the reason why Miami didn't make the playoff last year. So Miami might actually show up for this game just because Syracuse basically ended their season last year. So for that reason alone, like, I would hesitate to want to fade Miami here. Well, that and Syracuse's offense just looks unbelievably inept. But that, I think, kind of takes me away from the dream crusher angle here. Miami's a huge favorite, up from 28 to 28.5, 72% of tickets, 82% of the cash. The money looks like it's slightly on the Miami side, but they're public. But if you want to lay the points with Miami, I know Syracuse's offense looks like they can't even do anything, but this is a very low total, down to 46. You're not going to find me laying 4 touchdowns with a 46-point total. I mean, it just seems like each point is very big when it's a total like that. So we'll see what happens, man. Although I do think Miami might show up for this because it is revenge. So at least if Miami, if they're not going anywhere this year, they can at least get revenge against the team that stopped them from going anywhere last year, which was Syracuse last year with McCord there or whatever, a quarterback. So they may actually show up for that. Auburn, Vandy is also going to be a play for me. So I'm going to have 5 plays, and at least 3 of them are in ranked matchups. I think exactly 3, and the other 2 I think are not. Number 23, Washington is at Wisconsin on Big Ten Network at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. This one, Washington, all of a sudden they're in the rankings, and I think maybe it is deserved. Washington, I think they've been kind of under the radar all season, and they're a fairly good team. But when a team like this that's been unranked all season and not really used to being in the rankings, all of a sudden they're ranked, it kind of like puts a target on their back, and sometimes that team kind of has like more pressure on them. So that could be the case with Washington here, so I don't love that. For Washington, they're also coming out of a bye, and they went into the bye on a good note. They beat Illinois, who was actually still ranked at the time, probably undeservedly, because you know me and my Illinois hate. I think Illinois has been overrated pretty much all season. They're not that good. Washington better than Illinois. Washington got that win. They went into the bye, though. That bye could kind of kill whatever momentum they might have created off of that win, though. So I think the bye came at kind of a bad time, even though it is later in the season. Now they're going to go to Wisconsin. Washington, when they've gone, east, they've kind of struggled a little bit. They barely got by Maryland, and they actually had to come back in that game and escape. And then they lost at Michigan. Michigan's pretty good, but Washington in those road games outside of their own time zone, they haven't been particularly good. So that's a little bit of a concern as well. For Wisconsin, they're not going anywhere this year. They're probably not even going to make a bowl, but they're also coming out of a bye, and they went into the bye on a just ridiculous losing streak. They lost 6 games in a row going into the losing streak, I think is what that is. Is that what it is? Yeah. So I think that bye is better for Wisconsin because that bye can end that losing momentum, and you can use that bye to fix some things. I think they might show up for this one, man. They have a ranked team coming into their place. It's kind of a weird spot for Washington because Washington being pretty new to the Big Ten, they probably haven't even had to play at Wisconsin yet at Camp Randall, which is not what it used to be with Wisconsin being a completely down program. And Wisconsin looks like they just have absolutely zero offense now, but still, I think the spot actually sets up better for Wisconsin. I mean, Wisconsin, if they're going to show up for any games down the stretch, it'll be games like this where they're facing a ranked team, especially at home. Even though Washington, I guess, there's kind of an outside chance for them to maybe do something, but they probably don't really think so with 2 losses in the conference. I would take the points with Wisconsin. Washington's up from 10.5 to 11. This one was actually somewhat close to being a play for me, to be honest. I like I call it the inverted bye situation where one team went into the bye on a good note and that bye can hurt them. The other team went into the bye on a terrible note and it can help them. 70% of tickets on Washington, 51% of the cash coming in on Wisconsin. So the money is seemingly agreeing with that, taking Wisconsin. With Wisconsin, though, I mean, they have not been able to beat anybody of any note, though. Like, their only wins are against Miami, Ohio, though at least they've actually proven to be a decent MAC team at the very least. And then Wisconsin beat Middle Tennessee. They're just awful. So Wisconsin still doesn't have any wins that are impressive at all. So that's a little bit of a worry there. Into the night slate on ESPN. And by the way, as I always say, I don't even know which game is College Game Day again. Although I'm assuming it must be LSU, Alabama, right? Because that's always a huge rivalry, even with LSU not being ranked anymore. I would guess it's that game, but we'll see. ESPN at 7 p.m. Wake Forest has been kind of a surprise this year at 5-3, although 2-3 in the ACC. They were supposed to be a complete bottom dweller in the ACC, and they've actually been pretty decent. Up against Virginia, ranked 14th in the country, 1 loss on the season, out of conference, and they're the only undefeated ACC team at this point. Who would have thought? Is Virginia really the 14th best team in the country, though? I don't think so. I would say that they are almost certainly not. The power ratings guys will basically tell you they don't even have Virginia in the top 25. I think Virginia is overrated. There are a few teams that I'm going to say are like some of the most overrated right now in the entire country. One of them is going to be a team that I'm playing against with one of my plays. Another one of them is Virginia here. So you kind of know where I'm going with this one, although this is not going to be a play from me. Wake Forest, They got absolutely drilled last week by Florida State, which I kind of expected. I leaned towards laying the points with Florida State in that one, and Florida State easily just drilled them. Wake Forest, Wake Forest wasn't in a great spot because they pulled off that upset, which was one of my wins on the show, by the way, against SMU the week before that. So I just think they couldn't keep it up, especially going on the road. They had ED, is what I mean, going on the road to Florida State, and they had this big Virginia game up next. So I think they might have been looking ahead. Big ESPN matchup against Virginia. Wake, by the way, they only need one more win to become bowl eligible, which I don't know when the last time they made a bowl was, but they're going to get that anyway because highly likely they're going to win either against North Carolina or Delaware at home. So they don't need to win this game to become bowl eligible, but I still think they would like to because they could spoil the party for Virginia here, man. So I think they're going to show up for that reason and because they had an embarrassing loss last week. For Virginia, I think they're on thin ice here, man, because they have a target on their back big time now as the top team in the ACC, which nobody expected. If you look at their schedule this year, it's actually turned out to be pretty easy. Their best win was that one where I gave them out on the show against Florida State. But even that, Florida State's only a 4-4 team now, so that win doesn't look as good now. And then they pulled off that upset over Louisville, which was a loss for me on the show where I gave out Louisville. Thought it was a big-time letdown spot for Virginia in that one, but Louisville was like a 6.5-point favorite and probably should have won and covered if you look at the stats in that game. Louisville outstatted Virginia pretty badly in that game. Nate, what's up, man? I forgot to, I don't remember if I said what's up or not. I'm like, I don't remember anything anymore. I'm out of it. But yeah, Virginia, there's the potential they could lose, which, by the way, I still don't understand how they're listed as undefeated in conference, though, because they lost at NC State. Why is that not considered to be an ACC game? Isn't NC State in the ACC? Am I like losing my mind here? I don't know. I feel like I ask that all the time, but I just don't get it. I don't understand, man. Anyway, Virginia, their travel spot is a little bit weird too because they had to go out to the Pacific Coast last week, so they haven't had a week off doing all this travel here. They were at North Carolina, barely escaped with a win in that one 2 weeks ago. Then they had to go out to the Pacific Coast. So they went cross-country. Nice win against Cal, where I thought Cal was kind of in a bad spot, though, because Cal was actually flying back to the Pacific Coast as well from Virginia Tech from playing an overtime game where they almost pulled off the upset. So I think Virginia was more focused because they almost lost to North Carolina. But all this travel could wear them out a little bit, man. Coming back from the Pacific Coast again, so 2 cross-country trips. And they do have Duke up next. And by the way, that's a big game because Duke is actually, if you look at the odds, Duke actually has the best odds as far as like what the books are offering to win the ACC at this point. Duke's at like 2-1 or 2.2-1 or something like that, plus 220 to win the ACC. They actually have better odds to win the ACC than Virginia, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Louisville, SMU, and Miami, all the teams that are above them. So very interesting. But that is a big game, that means, for Virginia with Duke up next, because Duke is one of the threats to win this conference here. But, of course, these teams have to get to the ACC title game, and then once you get there, then you play that game to win it, obviously. So you have to be one of the top 2 teams in the conference. For Virginia, they're the team that can most afford to lose, though, because they're sitting at 5-0 in conference. Again, don't know how the NC State loss was not a conference loss because NC State is right here in the conference. Somebody can explain that to me. I would appreciate it if somebody explained that to me because I don't know what the hell that is. But this could be a look ahead to Duke is what I was trying to say with Virginia here. So I would lean at taking the points with Wake Forest. It's also really, really interesting that the books, what did they do here? They came out and they threw up the line at 6.5. So the fact that Virginia, who's the top of the ACC right now against this Wake Forest team that I think still doesn't get a bunch of respect, which maybe they're not as good as their record looks even, but I don't think either team is. But the fact that Virginia, the books put them out at less than a touchdown, it's like the books are begging you to lay the points with Virginia. So that's why a lot of times I do like taking plus 6.5, even though you're not getting the key number. But there's a reason why the books have opened it at 6.5, and with some tickets coming in on Virginia, 59%. The books haven't even moved this number. So that's kind of a red flag, too, that there's something going on there. Why the books have not moved that to 7. It's because they're basically okay with taking these bets on Virginia, although right now 62% of the cash on Wake, because I think there are a lot of professional bettors that do like Wake here. I agree with it. I think the fact they put up the 6.5 is a bit of an indicator. There's money coming in on the under as well, and the totals dropped from to 48. So if you're taking the points in this one, you're getting more value taking the points as well because it's a low total. So I do lean to Wake in that game. I think Wake could ugly the game up a bit there, and maybe pull off a stunner. I mean, we'll see, man. But again, like I always say, if you're going to take an underdog, I recommend always putting a little bit on the money line. And if it's a single-digit underdog, I recommend putting 10% of the bet on the money line because I think there's like a decent chance that they're going to win outright, like as long as your handicap is appropriate. Cal at Louisville, I think I completely forgot to even handicap this game, or did I? And I just didn't even pay attention. 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2 is this game. Cal needs one more win to become bowl eligible. Cal did just take that loss to Virginia, which is kind of a difficult loss, and now they have to go back to, I believe this is the Eastern time zone in Louisville, right? So not that easy to do. I mean, Cal has played in the Eastern time zone once, which was 2 weeks ago. So they're zigzagging all over the country, though, man. They played well in that game. They almost upset Virginia Tech. So they didn't do poorly when they did fly to the East Coast. So they did it actually earlier. They actually did it in September. They went to BC, my mistake. And they pulled off an upset there, although BC's been awful. And we're going to talk about BC on the show. But Cal, I mean, yeah, they've actually done well when they've traveled to the East Coast, interestingly enough. Which they're doing again here, well, not to the East Coast, but to the Eastern time zone this time. But again, they were on the East Coast Friday the 24th. They went back home, flew cross-country. Now they're flying basically cross-country again. So they're doing a lot of travel here. That's pretty difficult for Cal. And you got to think that they're probably going to win one of their next 2 games anyway to become bowl eligible, which will basically be their goal, I think, for the remainder of the season. They get a game at Stanford, who suck, and then at home against SMU, which is at least a winnable game, I think, for Cal. So this is their least winnable game remaining on the schedule. But will they get up for it going to a ranked Louisville team? They'll probably try, but they might be a little bit tired from all this travel. Louisville, one-loss team, ranked 15th in the country. They're probably overranked, but they've been playing well. They did just get that win at Virginia Tech. Now they're coming back home, but for them, they're staying pretty much in the same area, like not traveling very far. So the travel spot is a lot better for Louisville here. Louisville has not even had to go to the Pacific Coast all season, and this is the only Pacific Coast team they're playing, so they kind of luck out as far as the scheduling. They do have Clemson up next, but Clemson totally out of it this year. Maybe doesn't gather, maybe that game doesn't garner as much attention as it would otherwise, so maybe it's not really a look ahead for Louisville. They do have to keep winning if they're going to try to make the ACC title game here, which they certainly can. So I think they're going to show up for this one. They'll be a home favorite here, and pretty substantial as well, an 18.5-point favorite. 61% of tickets, only 60% of the cash. So the cash looks like it's slightly leaning against them. And again, money on the under, and it's a low total of 49.5. So the points kind of worth more there as well. I would tentatively, I guess, lean with the market there and take the points just because it looks like it's a lot of points with that low of a total. So again, that's just kind of my default, and looking at the market read, kind of my default. But I certainly don't love it. I don't love all the travel that Cal's been doing. So definitely would, that one is certainly not going to be making my card. ABC at 7:30, which I think is the game day game. LSU and Alabama. I mean, this is always a huge game for both teams, which is also going to be part of how I handicap this one here. It's on ABC. LSU has dropped out of the rankings. Alabama ranked 4th in the country, 1 loss, which was out of conference at Florida State in their first game of the season, which, maybe you could forgive for Alabama because Alabama's got a freshman quarterback. So maybe opening game jitters, whatever. Simpson, their quarterback, he's been good, though. And Alabama's undefeated in the SEC. Now, LSU, they're out of it. They got 3 SEC losses, so they're done. They're not going anywhere. So why might I want to lean to LSU here, which I actually do lean to taking the points with LSU here? Well, when a team is out of it like LSU, and I know they had championship aspirations, so yes, their dream has been crushed, but when the team's dream has been crushed, one thing is going to allow them to get up for a game, and that's the fact that they're playing Alabama. I mean, I think they're going to get up for a game against Alabama, even if they don't have anything else to play for the rest of the season. They're going to make a game like this their Super Bowl, and not only is it Alabama, but if you remember, Alabama basically ended LSU's season last year by going into LSU and embarrassing them, blowing them out. And that was the game where I think both teams had 2 SEC losses, and you basically knew that the team that lost that game was going to be out of it and not make the playoff. And that was the dream crusher for LSU. So you got to think LSU is going to remember that. So a little bit of extra motivation here for LSU for that reason as well. So I like all that. And it gets even better for LSU because LSU just fired their coach, Brian Kelly. So this is another angle I like to look at. So you're going to start wondering why I'm not adding LSU to my card, which I'll explain in a minute, but it's close. I like LSU in this one. It's fairly close. They fired their coach. That adds another angle that I like on LSU here. When a team fires their coach, a lot of times the players will play hard, especially in that first game, because they either didn't like that coach and they're going to play harder for the guy that steps in, and or the players are going to want to prove that the coach was the problem and not them. So you're going to get motivation maybe in both respects, but at least one of the two, which is why that angle works. And it's worked pretty well this year for the most part as well. So I think it only hasn't worked like once all season in college football against the spread, the fired coach spot. So it's pretty strong. Brian Kelly, I got a feeling that the players didn't really love him, man. He does ride the players hard. He's kind of an ass. I don't know where he's going to be going. Sometimes he doesn't make a whole lot of sense. LSU, the guy that is going to be the interim coach here is their running backs coach. So he's in the system. He's probably going to continue doing what they're doing anyway, which is LSU's been a good defensive team this year, and their offense hasn't been that good, surprisingly, with Nussmeier coming back to try to win a championship, and boy, did that fail. But LSU, they're still very good defensively. I think that's going to help them here, and they're actually very good defensively against the pass, and that's what Alabama tries to do. Even though it's with a freshman quarterback, Alabama does try to throw the ball. So LSU, their defense actually matches up pretty well against Alabama, so that makes me like LSU as well. And the fact that I think LSU, with their running back coach now being the head coach, I think he's going to run the football a lot. And LSU, I think, has kind of been doing that anyway. But when they're facing Alabama as an underdog, you got to think they're going to run the football anyway to try to shorten the game and stay in the game. So that also makes me like the under in this game. Then I think it's going to be a kind of a playoff atmosphere. Alabama's down from 11 to 10.5 here. Slight tick downward. If you like LSU, I think you'll easily be able to get the plus 10.5 at the very least, which is a key number. So I think you're fine if you want to do that. 75% of tickets, only 70% of the cash in Alabama, so the money is agreeing with taking the points with LSU. We have 61% of the tickets and 80% of the cash on the over, so the money kind of indicating on the over, but the total did drop a little bit, down to 49.5 juice to the under. So there is... that line move is at least a little bit of an indicator on the under. Again, I do like the under for the reasons I just stated. Probably prefer taking the points with LSU if I was going to play this one. LSU, by the way, I believe they're also coming out of a bye, so that's another thing to look at. LSU went into the bye on 2 straight losses, which basically kind of ended their season hopes, right? So I think that actually is a good time to have a bye because you can use that bye to fix things, prepare for Alabama, and it's good to have a bye when you fire your coach. It's a good time to fire your coach, I should say, which that was one of my angles with Florida last week. I liked the fact that they fired their coach during a bye because then what you can do is you get an extra week to prepare with that new coach, right? So he gets to, learn more about, what is going to happen with the system. Everybody gets used to each other more. You get more time to prepare with that coach who's going to be your coach moving forward for the rest of the year or whatever. So it is helpful to have that happen during a bye. I know it's kind of crazy that Brian Kelly had a very winning record with LSU, and he still gets the boot because he's never won a championship, and it looks like he's not going to. So interesting, but I do think that's going to help LSU. So I think the bye is more helpful to LSU. For Alabama, they do have to keep winning, though. Like, Alabama's got to run the table here pretty much because they do have one loss. They certainly could do it. most difficult game is going to be their next game, I think, the home game against Oklahoma, though. I wouldn't write off Auburn, though, in that Iron Bowl at the very end of the season there. Auburn is not as bad as they look. Still, I'm going to continue saying that. And you know Auburn always gets up when they play Alabama. I mean, that's just the thing. Weird things can happen in those weird rivalry week games. So a couple of games where maybe Alabama could trip up. Although, would a 2-loss Alabama team still make the playoff? Probably. But they want to make the ACC, the SEC title game. Although they could still do that too with one loss, I think. Looking at who's in the SEC, let me see what the SEC is doing right now. Yeah, and then they got to contend with A&M, the only other undefeated team, and then Georgia, Ole Miss. I mean, they need some slip-ups from some of those other teams too. So yeah, Alabama, they do need to keep rolling at the very least. Now, Alabama's coming out of a bye as well, and they did go into the bye on a good note. They'd won 7 games in a row. I mean, they haven't lost since their opening game. So yeah, I think the bye came at a bad time for Alabama. The fact that that bye came during that huge win streak, that might hurt their momentum. My hesitation would be that Alabama did not play well against South Carolina. And you remember, I gave out South Carolina in that game. South Carolina was winning outright in the fourth quarter in that game. So Alabama, they might actually see that as a bad performance, and they may actually use that bye to fix some things. So that is kind of my hesitation here. And my handicap on that South Carolina play was that I thought Alabama would be looking ahead to this LSU game. So I do think, based on what I said then, I do still think Alabama is going to show up for this game and try to be focused. But for all the reasons I stated, I do lean to taking the points with LSU. I think the situation does line up better for them, and it's pretty close to being a play for me. I've heard some professional bettors give some hesitation on the LSU side, though, as well. So, but close to being a play there for me. And then 7:30 p.m. on NBC and Peacock, we got 7-1 Navy against number 10, 6-2 Notre Dame. To me, I would think that the public would have a tendency to want to take the points here, just like they were looking to do last year with Notre Dame against Navy, although Navy was ranked last year when Notre Dame played them. But Notre Dame's up from 24.5 to 28 here, man. I mean, I think you got to think people are going to look at that and think that's way too many points. Even though, again, they thought that last year, Notre Dame absolutely annihilated Navy, which I called correctly last year, although it wasn't one of my plays. 65% of tickets, only 60% of the cash on Notre Dame, though. So even though the line did go up through some significant numbers, through 27, through 28, it looks like the cash is kind of coming back on the Navy side now. I don't think I really agree with that, though. I think I would lay it with Notre Dame if I was going to do it, although 28 is definitely a different story than 24.5. But I think this is similar to last year, man, where to me it kind of looks like the spread is like too big as far as like what the public would perceive. But I think it's probably legitimate. Like Notre Dame is way better than Navy, although it is being baked into the line. Like I think last year Notre Dame was a much smaller favorite than this. I think what were they, like around 2 touchdowns, maybe somewhere in the teens last year. So this is way, way bigger this year. So yeah, I mean the spread is, it's definitely a bit to lay here, although I'd probably still lean to doing that, though, because similar to last year, Navy, they just haven't played anybody, man. I mean, I know Navy's looking to get into the American Conference Championship here, but Notre Dame's not in their conference. So this is an out-of-conference game for Navy, so they actually don't really need to win this game. And Navy, they're coming off their first loss of the season, which was to North Texas. So I talk about this. When you haven't lost at all this deep into the season, then you take your first loss, and it was in a big step-up game against North Texas. That was the first time that Navy was an underdog all season. So I talked about that last year with Navy against Notre Dame, too, because I think Navy hadn't been an underdog all season, and then once they were, they just got crushed. Last week, I did mention I leaned to laying the points with North Texas, and that was correct. They did get the job done there, but now that Navy took that loss, I actually think they might be hung over a little bit into this game, man, because it's not that easy to get back up off the mat after you lose that first game. They still have 1 loss in conference, and their next 2 games are big against South Florida and then Memphis, and they do have their annual Army-Navy game after that, but still, for the American Conference, those next 2 games matter. As crazy as it is, those games actually matter more than this Notre Dame game. I mean, yeah, they'd like to get this Notre Dame game, but if they want to make the American Conference, man, I mean, I think they got be focused on that. Although I guess the argument for them focusing on Notre Dame would be, well, would a one-loss, if they run the table, would a one-loss Navy team make the playoff? I guess you could maybe make that argument. Like, they would have to beat Notre Dame, South Florida, and Memphis, with 2 of those games being on the road. That's not going to happen, though. But, I mean, I guess maybe it's a possibility. Maybe they will get up. Maybe they'll get up for it also because they got crushed by Notre Dame last year. But I just think it's a mismatch, man. I just think Navy just, they don't have it in them against Notre Dame, man. In these recent years, I just don't think so. And again, Navy has faced a very, very easy schedule. I mean, the first time they got tested basically at all, well, aside from going to Temple, I guess Temple was fairly good, and they only escaped with a 1-point win in that one, where I think Navy was a road favorite there, though. Yeah, Navy was a 10.5-point favorite, and they barely got out of there with a win. And now they were an underdog for the first time last week, and they lost to North Texas. So, yeah, I mean, stepping up in class, they haven't done well. Last year it was kind of a similar thing, and they got obliterated by Notre Dame 51-14, and that was their first loss of the season. And it hung them over into the next game, by the way. They took a loss against Rice in the next game against an inferior opponent. So that might happen again this time. It's just that their second opponent there is going to be this Notre Dame one. Notre Dame is going to be their second opponent instead of their first of what I think are going to be 2 losses. Like, I certainly don't think Notre Dame's going to lose this game. Notre Dame, by the way, they are used to facing triple option teams like Navy. Notre Dame faces them every single year. So Notre Dame, they're not going to be thrown off by it. You know, I mean, last year I think they actually faced Army as well. So they actually faced both of those triple option armed force academies, whatever. Last year, military academies last year. And it was late in the season last year. Just this Navy team, Notre Dame team, they're used to it, man. They faced both those triple option decks. They absolutely destroyed both of them, too, Navy and Army. So Notre Dame had no difficulty doing it. Notre Dame's got a good defense. We know this. They know how to stop these attacks, stop the Navy from attacking. Navy's they're coming by sea because that's how gay they are. We know that I forget what I was gonna say. It's Chuif by sea, but I forget what I was gonna say. I have too many thoughts in my head right now. But yeah, Notre Dame. They just know how to stop these attacks, even though they haven't faced one this year. They're still used to it. They know how to stop the triple option, and Notre Dame just went through the motions last week against Boston College, which I told you I thought BC might be able to cover that number. Notre Dame had beaten USC in a big game 2 weeks prior to that. They'd gone into a bye. I thought they might come out of that bye a little bit lackluster because the bye can kind of hurt their momentum a little bit. I thought this game mattered more against Navy. Yeah, they have a big game up kind of against Pittsburgh next to. Pitt is ranked, but probably not deserving of being ranked. Notre Dame, though, the other reason they're going to show up here is they have to run the table. I mean, they took 2 losses right out of the gate, and it looked like there was no way they were going to make the college football playoff. They were going to have to run the table to do it. Now it looks way more likely that they actually might be able to do that, but they got to keep their foot on the gas to do it, man. So will it be enough to cover that huge number? I don't know, but I'm kind of leaning towards laying the points with Notre Dame in that one. They still need to show up at least because they still have their sights set on a potential championship. So there we go. Any of these games that I want to talk about besides the games I'm going to be giving out plays on, Colorado and West Virginia. If you look at this, Colorado got absolutely annihilated by Arizona last week. So they look like they're going to be in a bounce-back spot. I mean, they don't have a whole lot left to play for here. They're probably not going to make a bowl, but they got disembarrassed against Arizona last week, 52-17 at home. And if you look at what happened in this game, Colorado had 5 turnovers in the game, -3 in turnovers. Yeah, they got outgained by about 100 yards too, but the 5 turnovers made this way worse than it actually was. It made it look worse than it actually was. So I think it's kind of a bounce-back spot for Colorado here. West Virginia, I mean, they're not really going anywhere either. So you got to kind of determine, like, how motivated are these teams going to be. I think maybe Colorado will be more motivated because they're coming off such a disgusting loss, whereas West Virginia last week, they pulled off a big double-digit road upset at Houston. fairly unexpected, I think, although I think I probably leaned to West Virginia plus the points, but didn't expect them to win the game outright, and they did. So they're coming off a big upset win, man, which I think they might come into this game a little bit overconfident, and you got to be thinking, like, how does a team put up 45 points against Houston when Houston, they're known for being a good defense? That was a double-digit upset, by the way, of 12.5. Yeah, Houston's a good defense, but if you look at what happened in this game, yeah, West Virginia actually did slightly outgain them, but 4 turnovers by Houston, -4 in turnovers. That was kind of the tail of the game, man. I don't think West Virginia would have won that game at all without being +4 in turnovers. So you have one team coming off a very satisfying upset win. You got Colorado coming off an ugly, ugly loss. Both games are kind of skewed by turnovers. I think Colorado makes sense in this game. I would take the points with Colorado. West Virginia is up from 5.5 to 6.5 here. 66% of tickets, only 55% of the cash. Those are the money. Seems like it's agreeing with me and taking the points with Colorado, so that's what I would do. Lean towards taking the points with Colorado. And, of course, because I think sometimes I just say I like this team or whatever, but when I'm saying that, I do mean against the spread. I'm talking all spreads here, man. James Madison at Marshall is an interesting one in the Sun Belt here, with James Madison being undefeated in the conference at 5-0. Marshall being a 2-loss team. They're in the same division, though. James Madison, I mean, I don't know if there's any outside chance of them maybe even making the playoff at this point, because they only have 1 loss, and it was to Louisville. I don't know, man. If they could run the table here, they could definitely run the table. They don't really have too many difficult games left. This is the most difficult game left on the road against Marshall. And I thought they would trip up against Texas State last week because JMU was coming off a huge blowout win of Old Dominion, which was a huge win for them. I thought they would get caught. Texas State, I thought that Texas State just was massively underperforming. I thought they were way better than what their record looked. Texas State, with that coach they have there, they've actually been quite good. But I was wrong. James Madison killed them. And then I thought James Madison was going to be looking ahead to this game. They've been off since Tuesday the 28th, and I do think James Madison is going to show up for this because last year Marshall was the team that basically ended James Madison's season as far as their goals are concerned, because Marshall prevented them from getting into the Sun Belt Championship at the very least. So James Madison, I think their goal was to win the conference last year, and they lost to Marshall in the final week, and Marshall totally overperformed too and got into the championship game instead. Now this is a totally different Marshall team because the entire team and coach bailed and went to Southern Miss, but still, James Madison's going to remember that, so I actually think they are going to show up for this game against Marshall. And, JMU is still trying to make sure that they get into the Sun Belt Championship, although it's pretty likely at this point, although they still have to win the Sun Belt East to do that, and Coastal Carolina is right behind them, although James Madison does play Coastal Carolina later in the season. And Coastal is not as good as their record looks. Marshall, they last played on Thursday, and they lost to Coastal, which is not a great loss for Marshall there. Marshall was actually a 7.5-point favorite, and they got upset in this game on the road. This Coastal team keeps pulling off upsets. Marshall had 5 turnovers in the game. That's pretty much why they lost, -3 in turnovers. They outgained Coastal by a little bit there. So the spot doesn't look terrible for Marshall, though. I mean, they're trying to become bowl eligible, which they can if they get 2 wins out of the remaining 4. It seems likely that they probably will. Even though I expected this Marshall team to be real bad this year after they lost their whole team last year. But you remember Marshall, their whole team left last year, so the team had to, bail out of it. They had to, exit that bowl game. They had to, whatever it was, they had to drop out of the bowl, and some other team, I forget which team it was, took their place in whatever bowl that was. So this Marshall program didn't go to a bowl last year, so these players might actually be excited to do that. They'll probably get up for a game against JMU, coming off an embarrassing loss, but James Madison is going to be ready for it too. I think they are the better team. The money is slightly coming in on JMU, up from 13 to 13.5. 85% of tickets, 88% of the cash coming in on James Madison. I mean, I guess I would slightly lean to laying the points with them just because they still have their sights set on the conference championship here, and it is revenge for last year, but it might be a spot where both teams are going to show up here, man. But the odds makers are telling you that JMU is this much better than Marshall, and that Marshall is overperformed a little bit by just looking at their record here. All right. What else do we got going on here? Other games that I really wanted to talk about, there weren't a whole lot, so this might actually wind up being shorter than most of my college football videos. I still have 5 plays to talk about, though, but hey, man, shorter video, why not? I thought it was a little bit of a shorter slate this week, so I mean, what else do we? I don't know. I kind of just wanted to talk about games that had like more major implications and whatever. Let's see here. Iowa State TCU, I guess, is somewhat interesting because Iowa State, man, have they fallen. As TCU is now up from a 6.5 to a 7.5 point favorite in this one. Iowa State had been ranked earlier in the season. TCU, I think, was ranked very, very briefly, but Iowa State, bigger things are expected, man, and they've lost so many games in a row now that now TCU is a 7.5 point favorite against them. I think the line might have gotten too far here, man. I think maybe there is some value at this point taking the points with Iowa State, although I know they have some pretty significant defensive injuries now for Iowa State. Their offense hasn't really come together either. 74% of tickets, only 65% of the cash on TCU. So TCU is public with some of the money coming in on the Iowa State side. Now, Iowa State has indeed lost 4 games in a row. They did go off the rails here, and they haven't really faced that difficult of a schedule either. So I think they're just not as good as they were expected to be. But at this point, I mean, you might expect them to bounce back at some point, man. Although they are coming off kind of a tough loss at home to Arizona State. I don't know. I don't know what to think, man. They only lost that game by 5. Now they're going to go back out on the road. They're probably going to become bowl eligible because they're probably going to win either at home against Kansas or on the road against Oklahoma State. But they had their sights set for winning the Big 12 this year, though, man. So those dreams have been crushed, but will they get back up at this point to face TCU? I don't know. TCU is already bowl eligible. It's 6-2. I think they maybe had their sights set on potentially trying to win this conference too, but I don't think that's going to happen. You could argue that maybe they're going to overlook Iowa State because they do have BYU next, which is a big game for TCU, their biggest remaining game, basically. With TCU probably not going anywhere at this point as a 2-loss team in not a very good Big 12. TCU did also have a bye last week, and they went into the bye on a win streak, winning 2 games in a row. So I think the bye came at a bad time. Even though it is later in the season, it could disrupt their momentum a little bit. So I would lean to Iowa State, getting the points there. Take the points with Iowa State, but not a play for me. Kennesaw State at New Mexico State. This is interesting, man, because you do have kind of a cluster here in the Conference USA where, I didn't talk about Missouri State and Liberty, who are both 1-loss teams here. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and talk about that game briefly just because this video isn't going to be as long. Kennesaw State undefeated in Conference USA. That's just crazy, man. This is a team that I think joined FBS last year, and they were like a 1-win team. So they have definitely improved this year. But are they really this good? I don't really think so. Kennesaw, I mean, they've looked pretty good so far. I mean, they've had a couple of primetime games last couple of weeks, I think, and they showed up for these primetime games. They looked pretty good. They had a Thursday game, 2 Tuesday games, and they won all of them. That's pretty big for a team that's pretty new to FBS like Kennesaw is. Now they're coming off all of that. They've had a little bit of extra time off that I think might slow them down a little bit, maybe hurt their momentum a little bit. They actually didn't play very well offensively in their last game against UTEP, even though it looked good on the scoreboard with a 33-20 win. They weren't that great in the game. They only outgained UTEP by 9 yards, so it wasn't really a win by margin there. Now they're coming off all those primetime games. They got to go to New Mexico State, who's one of the lower teams in the conference right now. They might not pay attention to New Mexico State, and it's kind of a weird spot to have to go out there. And then up next, they got the other undefeated team in this conference right after this in the Conference USA against Jacksonville State, and then they have Missouri State and Liberty remaining. So the other top teams in the conference are all of their remaining opponents. Jacksonville State undefeated in the conference, and Missouri State and Liberty, 2 1-loss teams there in the conference. So Kennesaw might overlook New Mexico State here, man. I would lean to taking the points to New Mexico State in this one. And by the way, Kennesaw, they're bowl eligible, though I think technically not really because there's like a transition period here. But what we've seen in recent years is these teams that get 6 wins, they like petition the NCAA because there are so many bowl spots usually available. Like we saw James Madison do that. Jacksonville State in this conference did that a couple of years ago, I think. So I think Kennesaw might do that. So I think the fact that they got their 6th win in primetime is also pretty big, man, for a program that had 1 win last year, and now they're actually bowl eligible and might be able to petition to get into a bowl. That's big, too. So it could be a little bit of a letdown spot. I mean, I don't think that coming into this season, I don't think that their goal was to win the Conference USA. I don't think they really legitimately thought they had a chance at that, but they actually do. Although, looking at their conference wins, by the way, they haven't been that impressive. I mean, they've beaten all like bad teams in the conference. Arkansas State, Middle Tennessee, FIU, and UTEP. Those are all bad. Their one big good win was against Louisiana Tech, who isn't that bad. But other than that, not great. For New Mexico State, what do they have going on here? Let me see. As far as New Mexico State is concerned, they've faced some of the more difficult teams in the conference already. In Liberty, Missouri State, who they took into overtime. Western Kentucky, actually not that bad either. They have a little bit less rest because they played last Saturday, but they got obliterated by Western Kentucky. I mean, to me, I think New Mexico State might show up for this just because they can kind of spoil the party for Kennesaw. I mean, New Mexico State, I mean, if they win this game, then they actually could potentially become bowl eligible because they would have UTEP and Middle Tennessee remaining at the end of the season after they face Tennessee, which they're not going to win. But if they beat Kennesaw State, they do actually have a shot to make a bowl too. So I expect New Mexico State to actually show up. So I would take the points here. This is actually close to being a play for me, but the money is disagreeing with it strongly, with Kennesaw up from 6.5 to now 9.5. It looks like it might hit 10. You might be able to get the key number of 10 on New Mexico State here. That is a significant line move, though. Through the key number of 7, all the way almost up to the key number of 10 now. 54% of tickets, 96% of the cash on Kennesaw, so some strong money on Kennesaw. Again, I think they're not in a great spot, and they're just not really as good as their record looks. So I would take the points with New Mexico State in that game. What do you mean Kennesaw has a buzzsaw? What does that mean? Kennesaw is eligible, so their transition period was only 1 year then. I thought it was a 3-year thing, but maybe I'm thinking of basketball. Missouri State and Delaware are excluded. But again, can they petition? Because I thought James Madison and Jacksonville State both petitioned, although maybe it was when they were in their 2nd year. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work. These lines are wild. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think Kennesaw is a little bit overvalued at this point, man. I think their record makes them look a little bit better than they actually are. Like, they're certainly better this year than they were last year for sure, but are they this much better? I tend to not really think so. Going back to that Missouri State game, especially because Justin's here. He's our Missouri State guy. Where was that game? This is actually kind of a big game between Missouri State and Liberty. Missouri State also could get their 6th win, although Justin is saying that doesn't really matter because they might not be able to make a bowl. They've been off since Wednesday the 29th, beating FIU and barely beating them. FIU, not an impressive win. But Missouri State on a nice little win streak, although, again, it was against some weak opponents in this conference. Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, and FIU. Now they're going to go to Liberty. It's a step up in class, man. And Liberty, they were the team that was expected to win this conference this year. And they're sitting at 4-4, but I mean, everything is kind of in front of them right now, man, because they have 1 loss in the conference. They could still make the conference championship here. They're going to have to win these games, but their remaining schedule is not really tremendously difficult. They're coming off a blowout win over Delaware, but I think Liberty, I mean, they've gained some momentum here, and I think it might continue here. They are the better team over Missouri State, so the line's going to look a little bit weird, seeing that Liberty is only 4-4, Missouri State's 5-3, yet Liberty is favored by like a touchdown here. They are still the better team. I mean, this is what Liberty set out to do. They were the team that had the best odds to win this conference coming into the season. They're down from 8.5 to 8 here on the line, but the money seems to be coming in on Liberty. 74% of tickets, 85% of the cash on Liberty. I'll agree with it. I would lay the points with Liberty. Sorry, Justin. But I think Liberty is going to get the job done. I mean, they're the team that they're just way more used to this, man. Missouri State, they're new to FBS completely, so they're not really used to being in this position. Liberty, really, it was their conference to kind of lose, and they still actually could potentially get into the conference title game here, man, especially because they play Kennesaw in the last week. So if they beat Kennesaw, and at least even up their record with Kennesaw, they would overtake them because they would have the tiebreaker against them. So Liberty could definitely still make the conference championship and win the conference. So I like Liberty in that game slightly. Kennesaw is eligible. Okay, Missouri State in transition period. And right. That's what it is. Yeah, so Missouri State, if they get their 6th win, I mean, I think they're still going to show up for this game, I guess, because it is a big game against Liberty. Liberty's kind of been like the class of this conference recently. Well, I didn't see what happened in that Tulane game, and now there's like, I don't know, they're talking about women's basketball now on Sports Center or whatever, which I don't care about, women's college basketball. Women's college basketball started? What? But yeah, what Justin is talking about, I think what I was kind of alluding to is that, if not enough teams qualify, which I think usually is the case, because there are like 37, 38 bowls now, whatever, because it's a money-making scheme. So, I mean, you might see like what we saw with, I think, James Madison and Jacksonville State. They were able to petition and get into a bowl because not enough teams qualified, and they had more than 6 wins, or at least 6 wins. Tulane won outright, so I lead to Tulane to cover the spread in that one. They were winning the game by a lot, and I think they kind of blew it. But it looks like they wound up winning anyway after kind of imploding and blowing most of the lead there. What other games was I going to talk about here, man? Army. I think Army is actually kind of in an interesting situation, which I kind of forgot about. They're coming off beating Air Force. That's always a big game. One of the Commander-in-Chief trophy round robin games there, where the service academy that wins the most of the games gets the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Army beat Air Force, big win for them. They haven't played Navy yet, of course, because that's one of the last games of the entire season. So now they're coming off that. They are coming off, that's a pretty big win against Air Force. Now they got Temple. Will they completely show up for Temple? I don't know, because Temple's kind of fallen off a little bit. So Army's coming off kind of a bigger game there. So maybe a little bit of a letdown, you could argue there. Temple's coming off just an ugly loss, 45-14 to East Carolina. Just terrible loss for Temple. Temple still probably wants to become bowl eligible at the very least. They need one more win there to get bowl eligible. The money's not agreeing with me on this one. The money is laying the points of the Army up from 6.5 to 7. I don't really agree with it, though. I don't really see it being that being the way that I would lean in this one. Temple, 70% of the tickets, 50% of the cash is evenly split. So, read hard it. I'll do whatever I want. Fuck you, man. All right. So, I would lean the other way in that one. The only issue, I guess, with Temple is that are they going to be able to face a triple option attack? And I think they'll do okay in that respect, at least, because Temple did actually face Navy, and they did pretty well against Navy earlier in the season, which I already brought up earlier in the show. They were a 10.5-point underdog, and they only lost by 1 to Navy. So Temple, they already faced Navy, who's better than Army is. So Temple, they're at least used to facing these triple option attacks, so I don't think that's going to really throw them off. So I just thought that game was a little bit interesting. And then what else was I going to talk about? Well, Air Force is at San Jose State here. Air Force is also coming off that game where they lost. Close game to Army. Now they have to go out to San Jose State. Probably not the greatest spot for them. Maybe a hangover spot for Air Force with not a whole lot left to play for. One of the games they would get up for was that game against Army. They took the loss. San Jose State got the win in the late-night degenerate special last week, which I gave out an opinion on that. It almost made my card, man. I wish it did because I liked it. Some of the professionals didn't like it. Some did. But San Jose State got the win there. I thought it was kind of one of those inverted buy situations, if I remember correctly. And San Jose State got the win there. I mean, San Jose State's not really going anywhere either this year, though. I just think that maybe it's a tougher spot for Air Force in this one. So I would probably lay the points with San Jose State, but they're up from 3.5 to 5.5, although those numbers are kind of in no man's land there. 88% of the tickets, 96% of the cash on San Jose State there. So do what you will with that one, but that's, my slight opinion on that one. Florida State at Clemson, which would normally be a huge game, and instead it's the disappointment bowl, basically. With Florida State, they were so bad last year. I don't know if they were really expected to be that good this year, but they seem to be usually a powerhouse, and Clemson was supposed to be a championship contender, and these teams have fallen way short. Florida State did end their 4-game loss streak with a win over Wake Forest, so they do have some momentum, at least coming into this one. Sometimes when you end a loss streak, that can actually break that momentum, then you can move forward. They got their first conference win at the very least. They'll probably show up for a game against Clemson, because Clemson was supposed to be the way better team to start the season. Clemson's coming off that tough game against Duke, man. They came out of the bye, actually, which was between two pretty tough games against SMU and Duke. SMU got the ACC championship revenge against them, which Klubnik was actually, I think, out for that game. It looks like he was injured, but he came back, and Duke was able to get the win against Clemson. Difficult game for both those teams. Now Clemson's coming off of that. Clemson doesn't really have a whole lot left to play for. Will they show up for Florida State? I don't know, because they're coming off that big Duke game, and they do have Louisville up next, and maybe Clemson will have more focus on that because it's a Friday night primetime game, and they might be able to spoil Louisville's season. So I would slightly lean to Florida State in this one. They're getting the money. Clemson's down from a 1.5-point favorite to a 1-point favorite. Man, that is crazy. The odds makers telling you Florida State's actually the better of these two teams at this point. After Clemson was supposed to be a title contender, that is just crazy. But I think because Clemson's going to be the more disappointed team because Florida State wasn't expected to do a whole lot this year after how bad they were last year. That kind of makes sense as far as looking to the Florida State side here as well. 51% of the tickets, 76% of the cash on Florida State. I'll agree with that one. Florida at Kentucky. I was considering making Kentucky a play. It was close because Florida's coming off that big game against Georgia where they fell just short. That was a huge rivalry game for Florida, obviously. And with a Florida team that we know is not going anywhere, that's one of the games that they will get up for. Probably not so much going to Kentucky. They're probably not going to really care about that. And then they got Ole Miss and Tennessee and Florida State as their remaining 3 games. So games that they're probably going to at least try to show up for. So I think it's a bit of a sandwich spot. I mean, this looks like a flat spot to me for Florida, a game where they're just not going to really care about it, surrounded by bigger games. So I would take the points with Kentucky if I was going to do it. The one issue I really have with it is that Kentucky pulled off an upset last week, which ended my survivor. Isn't that great? Double-digit upset at Auburn. That's a big win for Kentucky, so that is kind of my one hesitation for Kentucky. You could argue both these teams are trying to become bowl eligible. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's an argument. Florida, actually, I believe had missed out on the bowl season a couple of years in a row, and then they finally made a bowl, I think, last year again, and they were pretty excited about it. Kentucky, I think, didn't make a bowl last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, they might be more excited to try to become bowl eligible at the very least. So they might be more pumped to try to win this because this is a winnable game for them. And they're going to win next week against Tennessee Tech, but then they would have to win one of their final games on the road against ranked opponents, which maybe they could do because Vandy is going to be a pretty disappointed team, I think, at that point, so who knows. But my main hesitation with Kentucky here is that I don't like to play teams that are coming off double-digit upsets like they are. But other than that, I think it is a pretty bad spot for Florida, so I would lean to taking the points with Kentucky. The market seems to agree. Florida looks like they're headed towards 3.5, so you'll probably be able to get 3.5 on Kentucky here at some point by the time the game kicks off. 61% of the tickets, only 54% of the cash on Florida, so the money is agreeing with it, like I said, and fading Florida there. Last game before my plays that I'll talk about. Actually, I'll talk about 2 more games, then I'll talk about my plays. It's still going to be a little bit of a shorter video than the other ones, so good. After doing a fucking 2-hour video this morning to just fucking lose today, that's great. Nebraska at UCLA. This is for Nate as well. Nebraska sitting at 6-3, 3 losses in conference now, so we know they're not going anywhere, man. So they're just going to play out the stretch here. Could argue that they're maybe in somewhat of a dream crusher-ish spot here. Coming off that loss to USC where they hung in there against USC, man. Nebraska had that chance to beat USC last week, and they fell just short. So everything for me would seem to be lining up on a spot where you want to fade Nebraska. They're going out to the Pacific Coast for a late-night game, and it's their first time doing that this season. That's ugly as well, man, when these teams that are not Pacific Coast teams have to go out to the Pacific Coast, unfamiliar environment, play a game that's going to be late with their biological clock. That's bad. So a lot of negatives for Nebraska. And then they go into a bye, and they got Penn State and Iowa to finish off the season. You could argue those are bigger games as well. Penn State, it's still the name, Penn State, and then Iowa. And they might not pay as much attention to UCLA. The one thing that Nebraska does have, well, actually two things Nebraska still has going for them. One is Nebraska lost at home last year to UCLA. So there is a little bit of a revenge factor here. So is that enough to motivate Nebraska here? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to really care and remember that, but they did lose at home to UCLA, which I think was a bad spot for Nebraska, if I remember correctly. I think UCLA might have been one of my plays last year in that game, if I remember correctly. But there is that. And then the other thing is Raiola, Patrick Mahomes' clone or whatever, Patrick Mahomes' understudy, he got hurt last week. So Nebraska is actually going to be in an injured player theory spot here. Whoever their replacement quarterback is going to be in this game. So sometimes that will motivate a team, man, because the team wants to play well for that backup quarterback, knowing, hey, we got to step it up, give more effort than we usually do. So a couple of things keeping me away from playing UCLA here, man, because normally I would say it looks like a really bad spot for Nebraska, but those couple of things give me some pause. UCLA, probably not going to become bowl eligible here. This is going to be the most winnable game for them remaining on the schedule, though, at the very least. And they're coming off getting blown out by Indiana. Pretty embarrassing, even though Indiana's a good team this year. But UCLA got blown out, and they went into a bye. So I think that is a positive for UCLA, because not only did they have extra time off, but they went into a bye on basically the worst note that you could have, which was their first loss since they had started their win streak. Awful loss. You got to think they're going to come out of that bye more focused, I would imagine, even though, yeah, they have Ohio State up next, but I don't think this is really going to be a look ahead for UCLA, so I do still lean to UCLA in this one, but again, I have a few hesitations with Nebraska here. Saab is bringing up a good point, which I'm going to bring up in a second. The money is actually, I guess, somewhat coming in on Nebraska, and even though they went from a 2-point favorite down to a pick 'em, but 57% of the tickets, 59% of the cash coming in on Nebraska. So slight cash percentage on Nebraska. I still lean against Nebraska slightly, but Saab and Nate are bringing up one other good point with Nebraska here is their replacement quarterback is from California. Thank you, Saab. Thank you, Nate. That is TJ Lateef. He played high school football in California, so you're right. So that is an extra motivating factor as well. So because Lateef is from California, he's going to want to play well in front of his home crowd. He's probably going to have friends and family come to this game, I would imagine, especially if he's from the LA area, which I think he actually is. As you're saying, he's a Southern California kid, so you're right. That's going to be an extra motivating factor as well. The crowd, he's going to have some of his friends and family there, so he's going to want to play well, and that's going to make the team want to play well for him. So you're right. That is another reason to not want to play Nebraska here. It's not going to completely flip me to play, that's another reason to not want to play UCLA, It's not going to completely flip me to wanting to play Nebraska here, though. Elite 11, all right, I don't know what that means, but situationally, I still kind of slightly lean to UCLA here, but you're right. Those are definitely some factors there that keep me away from it. I don't think it completely flips me to the Nebraska side, though. But, yeah, you're absolutely right with those points there. And then the late night degenerate special at 11 p.m. Eastern involves San Diego State, who is the only undefeated team in the Mountain West right now. In the Mountain West Conference. Wait, what? These numbers are wrong, right? Oh, no, because I forgot Boise lost to Fresno. How did I forget that? What the fuck? How did I forget that? I don't even know. All right. But San Diego State, they're undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in the Mountain West, man. San Diego State seems to have kind of gotten back to their former glory days here because the San Diego State team, they're actually playing really, really good defense for the most part, which is something that was kind of their hallmark. And they're actually able to run the football again. But now they're sitting undefeated, man. It looks pretty likely they're going to make the Mountain West title game here at the very least. But they also play Boise State next week. So that's a big game, man. It could be a look ahead to Boise State. That's going to be a huge game next week. And it looks, again, pretty likely San Diego State's going to make the conference championship game. They can actually kind of afford to lose a game, if you will. And this is going to be a weird spot, having to go out to Hawaii, even though I think they do that every other year, I guess, but still, you have to go out to Hawaii. It's a weird travel spot. It's very weird time biologically. Even if you're on the Pacific Coast, you're going out to a game that's at least an hour later than you're used to, although I think it's a little bit early Hawaii time out there. But looks like kind of a weird spot to me for San Diego State, man. And they're coming off a nice, easy win over Wyoming. I don't really care about that. But Hawaii, they're already bowl eligible this year, which was one of their goals, I would imagine, because I don't think they've been to a bowl recently under Timmy Chang there. Yeah, they were not eligible for a bowl last year. So that's a big deal for Hawaii. So I kind of hesitate to want to actually jump in on Hawaii, but you got to think they're going to get up for a game against San Diego State. Hawaii, I mean, they basically just throw the football, though, and San Diego State at least can counter that defensively. So I worry about it a little bit with Hawaii, but I think I still need to maybe taking the points with Hawaii here just because the spot looks very strange to me. The money's disagreeing with that as San Diego State's up from 4.5 to 7 here. 53% of tickets, 79% of the cash. So I worry about that. The money's coming in on the San Diego State side, it looks like there, but at least you're getting a better number with Hawaii if you like Hawaii at +7. They were on Penn State +15. Saab, good luck to you. I agree with that one, but it is not one that I really wanted to touch in any capacity. I agree with Hawaii as well, as I just said. Good luck to you on that one too, but it's not anywhere close to, I don't give it like love. I don't love it. I'm about to give out I have 5 plays now. I'm about to give them all out. The games that I would say are the closest to being plays for me that are not plays are Kentucky plus the points, LSU plus the points, and what was the other one that I mentioned? It was mostly those 2, I think, right? Yeah, I mean, I like those 2 probably more than the rest that are not plays for me. So it's basically those 2, I think, are the ones that I like the most that are not my plays. So let's get into my plays. Oh, and I guess Mississippi State was somewhat close as well. So I guess maybe those 3. So I like those 3. Those are not plays. Let's do it. Best bets. All right. We're going to be at least under 2 hours this time here. First one up, we're going to lay the points with Texas Tech -11. BYU, I'm done with them, man. BYU, this is going to be where it comes to an end for BYU. And people are going to look at this and say, undefeated BYU, 7th in the country, against one-loss Texas Tech, who's 8th in the country. Maybe even these people might think that Texas Tech is the better team. This is going to be on ABC at noon, by the way. I don't know if this is going to actually be the college game day game now because LSU is so bad, but I don't know. But I still think people are going to look at this and think this is way too high of a number on Texas Tech, and I don't think it is. I think BYU is going to, this is going to be where they get reality checked. Texas Tech up from 10.5 to 11.5 here, so you're not really missing any key numbers here. I saw 11s out there a little while ago, but 11.5, same thing pretty much. As of now, the cash doesn't look like it's on the Texas Tech side, but I've saw the number moving around a little bit, and it's close, so we'll see. 54% of tickets, 53% of the cash on Texas Tech right now, but this is another one of those spots, man, where you actually have the lower-ranked team in Texas Tech being a favorite, and this has been a moneymaker all season, man. I think the only loss where that was the case was Oklahoma against Ole Miss, which, of course, was one of my plays, and I think it was one of the only times I actually played this spot, so, of course, that means this will not be a winner. No, I think it will be. But, yeah, I mean, this has been a good spot in general this season, and last week I had mentioned that I think last week we had Utah as the lower-ranked team against Cincinnati, and yet they were like a 10.5 point favorite. And I was like, that was the biggest spread that I had ever seen as far as a lower-ranked team being favored. Well, now we have a new one where Texas Tech, the lower-ranked team, is -11. I mean, it's just crazy, man. But BYU, I'm going to continue to say it. I think they're massively overrated. At this point, I think they're the most overrated team in the country. I think it's not even close. I don't even think they're worthy of a top 25. Oh, Bowl Mania's up. Hell yeah, I'm going to make my Bowl Mania. And the college football playoff bracket challenge. Hell yeah, I'll probably do specials on those as well when we get to it. But yeah, let's I talk about the bowls the days of too, but those lines move so much that doing the bowls early might be helpful as well, so maybe I'll do that. But anyway, BYU, 7th in the country, nowhere near what they're power rated. I mean, as you can see, they're a massive underdog here. Odds makers telling you which one of these teams is the significantly better team, and it's not even close. BYU, I don't even think they're a top 25 team power ratings wise. Their best win was the one against Utah at home in the Holy War, and Utah outgained them by like 100 yards in the game. Utah lost the turnover battle. Sloppy play and just lost the game because of that. BYU has faced an unbelievably weak schedule otherwise. And then, yeah, they beat me when they went to Iowa State. That was kind of a bullshit game, too, where Iowa State just started turning the ball over. So it's basically like, if you don't turn the ball over against BYU, they're not going to beat you. So this BYU team, not impressive. Oh, and by the way, they just had a bye. And people might think that that's a good thing. But again, I don't think it is. When you have a bye this late in the season, you're 8-0. You don't want your momentum to be stopped, man. You want to keep going. So I think that's a bad momentum-stopping bye for BYU. So I don't like that. Texas Tech, this is going to be easily the best opponent that they've faced this year, except, I guess, well, I know I give love to Utah. Utah was a 3-point favorite at BYU, but at this point, you got to admit Texas Tech is better than Utah. Texas Tech won at Utah convincingly. So, yeah, this is going to be BYU's most difficult test, and it's on the road too, so easily their most difficult game. Texas Tech, they're in a good spot here, I think, to do this, man. And they could still win the Big 12 too, man. I mean, this is going to be the winner of this game. It's going to go a long way to winning the Big 12. And Texas Tech, they faced a little bit more of a difficult schedule. They won more convincingly against Utah. Like I said, they beat Houston, which was, I think, a better win than what BYU has. They lost to Arizona State, I know, but Arizona State's a more difficult opponent. Kansas State, a little bit more difficult too. So Texas Tech has faced a more difficult conference schedule significantly than BYU has. Texas Tech, now the other thing with Texas Tech is when they lost to Arizona State, they actually didn't have their quarterback. So Texas Tech is undefeated with Morton in his quarterback, and he is there again now. And not only is he there, but last week Texas Tech was actually in the reverse injured player spot with Morton coming back in that game, and they still won and covered against Kansas State. And I know I didn't really like Texas Tech in that game. I thought this was a look ahead here. My man Marco D'Angelo at Wager Talk, I guess, had a big play on Texas Tech in that game, which he's talking about, and rightfully so, because he was correct in that one. So, props to Marco on that one. I wasn't in agreement on that one, and I was completely wrong. But Texas Tech, I think this is a good spot for Texas Tech now because that was the first game with Morton back, and sometimes that's the type of game where it's the reverse injured player spot. You get your star back, you know, especially coming off a blowout win without him. You might take that opponent a little bit lightly, which is another part of the reason why I didn't love Texas Tech in that one. But I was wrong. They got the job done. This Texas Tech team did need to continue winning to make sure they can try to make the Big 12 championship here. And now it sets up really nicely for them to do that. They got to win this game. This is their big game left on the season, man. I like it. I think they're going to blow BYU out of the building. Lay the points with Texas Tech. That is my first play here. Wake Forest, no, actually. I already talked about Wake Forest. That was somewhat close to being a play for me as well. I agree with Wake Forest. I don't even think it's 7, though, is it? I mean, you might be able to find a 7 out there maybe tomorrow, but it looked like it was 6.5 across the board. I like it, but I don't love it. I do think Virginia's very, very overrated as well. Saab, you're on BYU, hell yeah. But yes, I agree with Wake, but it's not one of my plays. Next up, we're going to play Boston College plus 10.5. My boys. I know how ugly this is. This is awful. The money looks like it's slightly disagreeing with me for now, but come game time, I don't think it will. The number dropped a little bit from 12 to 10.5, so not really any key numbers in there, but you want to get at least the 10.5, I think, if you can. Obviously, because 10 is a key number. 62% of the tickets, 63% of the cash on SMU as of now, but I don't like this spot at all for SMU. The money's coming in on the under, which is also pretty helpful when you're taking an underdog. Typically you want like lower totals, which this isn't a particularly low total at 54.5, but money coming in on the under. I like that at least, and I do not like the spot for SMU. SMU, they got 3 losses now on the season. So, yeah, I mean, it's possible they can get back to the ACC title game, so I guess they can't really afford a loss, but they're coming off upsetting Miami in overtime, man. I mean, that was a huge win, bouncing back from that loss to Wake Forest. monster win. You got to think they're in a bit of a letdown spot after that, man. Having to go up to BC. And BC, I mean, not a team that's going to really attract your attention. They've been so bad this year. And then they go into a bye, and then they got Louisville. And that Louisville game is going to be huge for SMU because that could matter quite a bit because Louisville's another one-loss team in the ACC. So I think this is a sandwich spot, even though, yes, they do need to keep winning. But, man, it's going to be a little bit difficult. And I actually think Boston College is going to show up for this game. BC actually showed a little bit of something against Notre Dame last week, although I think part of it was that Notre Dame just didn't show up. Does that mean BC is going to be in a little bit of a hangover after that because that's a rivalry game against Notre Dame? I actually don't think so because BC, I mean, they're still winless in the conference. They still have SMU coming into their place. I still think it's going to be a big game. BC did lose to SMU on the road last year, and that was actually revenge for SMU, hilariously, because BC beat them in the Fenway Bowl, I think, the year prior to that, if I'm remembering that correctly. So now if there's any revenge motive, it does flip to the other side to BC. But the other reason I like this for BC is this is the red bandana game for BC, man. So this is an annual tradition. It is to honor, I wish I could remember his name. I can't remember his name. It's in remembrance of a BC lacrosse player who became a volunteer firefighter and died in 9/11. And since then, they've been doing this, the red bandana game. It's one of their big games that they usually get up for it. Although, I mean, you could argue, well, their record isn't that good in the red bandana game. They're only 6-5 straight up with a win, I believe, last year against Michigan State in the red bandana game. So, yeah, they're 6-5. I believe they're 7-4 then against the spread in this game. But still, they're a big home underdog here, man. And this is the type of game they do tend to show up for and play well because it's a big emotional celebration. So I do like that aspect of it, the red bandana game for BC. Again, it's a weird spot for SMU, kind of a sandwich spot. It's late in the season, too, so it's starting to get a little bit cooler up here, man, which maybe SMU doesn't like, although, yeah, it's going to be 60 degrees, so I guess it's not going to be a huge factor up here. I would like it if it was going to be way colder tomorrow, but whatever. Still, I don't like the spot for SMU at all. It's a sandwich spot. We'll take the boys with Boston College, which I can't even do at the books legally up here because you can't play in games involving Massachusetts schools. So if I want to play it, I have to go to an offshore. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say that out loud. All right. Next game is Saab was right on this one, I guess. Yukon plus the points. I like this one as well. Connecticut, where are we at here? Or actually, the Yukon. Are they listed as Yukon? No, they're listed as Connecticut here. We're going to fade Duke here, man. This is at 8.5 right now. I mean, 8.5, 9, still kind of no man's land, whatever the number is. 76% of tickets, 83% of the cash on Yukon. I know it's a game with a high total, so I don't necessarily love taking points with a total this high in the 60s, although at least money's coming in on the under a little bit. But I just think this spot is really, really bad for Duke for a number of reasons. Going to fade Duke here, although it looks like you're probably only going to be able to get at best 8.5, but as long as you can get at least 7.5 on this, I think it's worth it. This is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports. Which I forgot to talk about BC being on ACC Network at 12 p.m. noon Eastern. Duke, I mean, they're still in the mix for the ACC championship. Like I said, they're actually the favorite to win the ACC, which is ridiculous. They're coming off a huge game, though, winning at Clemson in a 46-45 barn burner. Even though Clemson's down this year, that is a monster win for Duke, dude. A huge win for Duke. And I believe they had not won at Clemson since like 1980. So it had been, 4+ decades since they won at Clemson. That is a historical upset for the Duke program, man. Huge, even though it was I believe it was an upset, but it was a slight upset. Yeah, 4.5, but that's still a huge win for Duke. Now they go to play Yukon, which, by the way, this game doesn't even really matter to Duke because Duke needs to win the ACC. That's what they want to do. Well, guess what? UConn's not in the ACC, so this is a non-conference game, and it's on the road. I could see Duke not really caring about this game. And what do they have up next? Oh, yeah, they have Virginia up next. So I think they're going to be looking ahead to, because Virginia is atop the ACC. That's a huge game. Duke's basically going to need to win that game. This Yukon game legitimately doesn't matter unless Duke really cares about getting to their 6th win and making a bowl, which that's going to happen anyway, most likely, with the weak opponents at the end of their schedule here. And plus, Duke makes a bowl every year, so that's not what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to win the ACC. This game doesn't matter to them. For Yukon, they've had a good season. Yes, they're bowl eligible already, which they have been in some recent years, so that's big, but I still think Duke coming to their place is big, man. I mean, Yukon, they stepped it up when they played at Syracuse, and they kind of got screwed. They should have won that game. I mean, they were winning that game late and somehow blew it and failed to even cover in overtime. Just ridiculous. But they stepped it up for that ACC game. They stepped it up at Boston College at that ACC game. So they're 2-0 against the spread against big conference teams, both in the ACC. So that's a good sign that Yukon has stepped up in class pretty well. Yes, Duke is a lot better than both those opponents. I get that. But Yukon has played hard against them, and I think they're going to. I mean, it's Duke coming into their place. I think this game matters more than the remaining games on the schedule at this point, man. After this, Yukon, they'll be headed to a bowl game, whatever, but Duke is going to be a big game for them. So I think Yukon will show up for it. I think the game doesn't really matter to Duke, to be honest, and it's a sandwich spot for Duke. Give me Connecticut, Yukon, plus the points. Duke, having to go up to an unfamiliar environment there as well. As I was saying, I don't think it's going to be cold, unfortunately, though, because it's not going to be cold in Boston. So it's going to be around 60 degrees, so that's not really going to affect these southern teams. But still, I like it. 2 more plays. Next up, we're going to take Missouri plus 7 against Texas A&M. Texas A&M is another team that I think the stock is as high as it's going to get. They're up to a 7-point favorite from a 6-point favorite here. This total has dropped down to 48.5, so this is one where could have a bit of a lower scoring game here, potentially at least, which means that I like the idea of taking the points for that reason. Although the money looks like it's actually coming in on the over, and I've heard some arguments for an over, so whatever. But I like the spot for Missouri here, man. 61% of the tickets, 62% of the cash on A&M for now. I don't know if that's going to last, but I do not like the spot for A&M here, man. This is 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC, so the football games, we're going to know the results of those pretty quickly. But Texas A&M, they're undefeated, and they went into a bye, man. Just like I said with BYU, that is not when you want to go into a bye. And they went into a bye, Texas A&M did, beating LSU. I mean, I think that's one of the worst times to have a bye, because yes, you'll be able to rest a little bit, but it can hurt your momentum quite a bit, man. Having a bye this late in the season and not having any losses yet, I think that's crazy. Texas A&M, 3rd in the country. They're not actually the 3rd best team in the country. I don't buy that. Missouri sitting at 22nd ranked. I think Missouri might actually be underranked slightly too, as ridiculous as that sounds. Well, I know Missouri, their quarterback is hurt now, so we do have to take that into account. But that's actually one of the situational angles in this game. But yeah, A&M, I mean, this is going to be a 3rd straight road game, although I know it's a bye in between the two. And yes, they did wreck LSU, but still, I mean, their other road games have been close at the very least, although a good win on the road at Notre Dame as an underdog. And then Arkansas played them close, which is a little bit damning, I guess, that Texas A&M didn't play that well at Arkansas. Now they're going up against Missouri, and Missouri is a legit defense, and Missouri can really, really run the football. So that's what Missouri does. So the fact that their quarterback is injured might not downgrade Missouri that much because they run the football so much and play defense. Missouri, yeah, I mean, they're not going to make the SEC title game or anything like that, but I think Missouri, they're going to show up for a game against A&M, man, where it's the 3rd ranked team in the country. They get to maybe spoil the party here. Missouri's been good. They've stepped up well at home at the very least, which really it only was against Alabama where they did that, but they only lost by 3 to Alabama, so not too bad there. And they played well on the road against Vandy, and I think they kind of got screwed because Vandy, I mean, that was one of my plays on Missouri in that game, and Vandy basically intentionally injured Missouri's quarterback, Pribula, and rolled his ankle and whatever. Although I don't know if Pribula is really that good. I mean, Missouri, again, they run the football. That's what they do. That's what they do first. So I don't know if their offense is going to be that much affected. They brought in Zollers, however you pronounce his name, in that game, so at least it won't be his first time playing for them this season, so he gets a little bit of game time under his belt at the end of that game against Vandy. He actually wasn't terrible when he was in there, so I think that's a decent sign as well. And they went into a bye, so I think that's good, man, because Missouri went into a bye on a bad note, losing 2 of their last 3 and losing to Vandy. And when that happens, I think you use that bye to your advantage because you fix some things, and it's going to help Zollers, their quarterback there, get him up to speed. So that bye is going to help, actually. They get an extra week to game plan with the new quarterback, the guy who they know is going to be their quarterback now, get ready for it, whatever. So I think that bye came at a really good time for Missouri in this one. And now it's going to be the injured player spot, but the team knows that with their quarterback out, they're going to have to step up their gameplay, and you might get a little bit of extra value on Missouri for that reason. So that situational angle comes into play in this game as well with Missouri. So, yeah, give me the points with Missouri in that one. And then we're going to have one more here. You're going to do Boston College money line, Missouri money line, and Texas Tech alternate line, minus 120.5 on a parlay. So you're parlaying, a bunch of underdogs, I guess, and making it a massive underdog. Again, I mean, I hate parlays just because you don't get enough value on it. Like, I would just play each of those individually as an underdog, to be honest. Teams playing off Notre Dame are bad against the spread, shit against the spread for BC. Yeah, but I mean, I don't think Notre Dame really went full throttle against BC, so I don't really see BC being that beaten up there. I mean, we're not going to go 5-0 in these plays, so there is that. I mean, I still like it for BC, and plus it is the red bandana game, so I think they will show up for it, but we'll see. UCF didn't get the job done tonight, man, in their space game, which, by the way, UCF was undefeated in that game where they wear their space uniforms, whatever that is. I guess it has something to do with Cape Canaveral or whatever. They were playing against Houston, the other space city. So maybe Houston got pissed, and maybe Houston was like, no, we're the space city, not you guys, whatever. And Houston wound up winning that game tonight. I thought UCF might be the right side in that one. Wasn't a play, of course, but yeah, I mean, interesting, because I think UCF was 8-0 in their space game wearing those uniforms, and they lost. That's just ridiculous. You were on UCF. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I agreed with it, but I didn't love it enough. My final play, I don't know if Saab was able to guess it or not. We're going to go with Auburn plus the 6.5. I guess you can wait on this and see if you can get the 7 on this. Don't know if it's going to happen. It looks like it was 7 at some point. I don't think you're going to be able to get the 7, though. I don't even know if I saw the 7 out there, but I think it was mostly 6.5. And the fact that Vandy, who is their opponent here, is pretty public with 77% of the tickets and only 54% of the cash on them, and it's a low total, which I like as well, in the mid-40s. The fact that that number is still sitting at 6.5 and it's actually going down, I think that tells you basically what you need to know. The books are okay getting all these bets coming in on Vandy. It just looks way too easy to lay Vandy at less than a touchdown here. But for Vandy, I don't know, man. I think we're maybe starting to look at Dream Crusher territory. They're ranked 16th in the country, yeah. They're a 2-loss SEC team now. They're probably not going to make the SEC title game now, man. I think maybe if their aspirations became, probably going into the season, they did not have, playoff aspirations, I wouldn't think. They might have had aspirations of maybe trying to get to that SEC title game, and now I don't think they're going to be able to, so I think you could argue they're in a Dream Crusher spot here, man. And they just played 4 ranked teams in a row, and yes, there was a bye after the Alabama game, but then they came out of that, and they had a monumental win against LSU, which huge for the program, because Vandy hadn't beaten LSU, I think, in, decades. Then I thought they were in a letdown after that, and they beat Missouri, and they rolled Missouri's quarterback's ankle and intentionally injured him. Bullshit. But Vandy got that win, another ranked win, and then last week, Vandy was completely out of that game. Texas was beating them 34-10 late in the game, and Vandy came all the way back and cut it to 3. After that effort for Vandy to try to come back and beat Texas, which would have been a monster win, basically keeping their hopes alive, now their dreams are dashed after that effort. Now they got to play this Auburn team that looks like they're basically going nowhere. Yeah, I think it's a bad spot for Vandy here, man, off of just those huge games in a row, especially the way that Texas game finished, which, by the way, Vandy got the benefit of a really bad call with the 2-point conversion on their second to last touchdown or whatever it was there, second to last score. It was not even close to breaking the play. And I don't understand how the refs gave them a 2-point conversion on that. Some rigging going on in that game. But I like Auburn. This, by the way, is at 4 p.m. Eastern on the SEC network. Auburn, they're only 4-5. Yeah, I know. It's been bad for them. They're going to get a win against Mercer after this. This is maybe a winnable game, though, for Auburn. So if they're able to win this game against Vandy, they're actually going to make a bowl because they'll beat Mercer next week, most likely. So last year they did not make a bowl. So Auburn maybe at least trying to make a bowl here, man. But I like Auburn for a bunch of reasons. I mean, they're in a bounce back spot because they're coming off the thing that ended my Survivor. They lost as a favorite to Kentucky as a double-digit favorite. And when a team comes off a loss as a double-digit favorite, you know I like to be on that team in the next game, man, because they're going to want to bounce back. That was embarrassing. They didn't play particularly well. It was a close game statistically, and they lost the game really, really bad. So I think they're going to step it up for that reason. But, of course, you know what I'm about to say. Hugh Freeze also got fired. So Auburn is in the fired coach spot. They fired their coach finally, which I think is going to spark the team as well. It's going to be some interim coach for the rest of the year that's in the system already. So, again, just like I said with whatever the other team was that I talked about. Oh, I talked about it with LSU, I think, which was not one of my plays, but close. I think the team's going to show up with some fire, man, because maybe they didn't like the coach or they want to prove that the coach was the problem and not them. So they're going to play better, I think. Yes, I'm a little bit worried that they haven't been as good without Jackson Arnold. I almost said Jackson Darnold. That would be some weird mix of Jackson Dart and Sam Darnold. That would be weird. Jackson Arnold, I believe, is the quarterback's name for Auburn. He went down. He's hurt. Don't think he's coming back. They're trying to work their new quarterback in here, Daniels. Still, I don't know if that's a huge problem, though, because Auburn does run the football quite a bit. So I think that's what they just got to get back to. Run the football, play defense. This Auburn team really hasn't been that bad this year, man. I know they're 4-5. They're 1-5 in conference, but their conference schedule has been really difficult. And all their losses, except for Georgia, were by one score. And that was a game where the refs, I think, screwed Auburn. Like I said, Auburn should have been up 17-0 in that game. And they were still only down 3 late in that game. So besides that game against Georgia, all of Auburn's other losses have been by 7 or fewer points. So especially if you get the 7 here, it's going to be really nice. But yeah, they've played pretty well against pretty good teams. In Oklahoma, losing by 7. A&M, they lost by 6. Georgia, they lost by 10, but it should have been closer. Took Missouri into double overtime and lost by 6. And then again, yeah, they lost to Kentucky by 7. That was their only really, really bad loss out of any of them. I mean, the rest of the losses were not bad. I think you're going to get a bounce back from Auburn here. I think you're going to see them play competitively again this time. Maybe a dream crusher spot for Vandy as well here, where Vandy doesn't play as well. So there you go. Those are the plays. Yeah, Saab, you're gonna jump on Auburn with me there. Yeah, the way Vandy tried to come back against Texas. You're on Alabama minus the points. I don't agree with that one. I like LSU plus the points in that one. LSU needs time with a new coach, but they did, right? LSU, they had that. It's not really a new coach. It's their running back coach. He's been in the system. They just elevated him. I mean, you could make the same argument with Auburn that I just talked about. But no, I think the fact that LSU has a new coach, again, he's an interim coach. He's in the system, and they had a bye, which I think is really helpful because it helps him work. Like, it helps the team work with them. So, no, it's the same thing that I did with Florida last week. The new coach had the bye to, like, really ramp it up. It's a fired coach spot. I think the fired coach spot is only a positive for LSU. And yes, Alabama did nearly get upset. That is, like, the one hesitation that I kind of have with LSU. But also, I think the bye might stop Alabama's momentum. I mean, the main issue I have with LSU is that Alabama still needs to win that game to make sure that they do what they want to do this year. But I like LSU plus the points in that game. And that was one of the ones that that almost made my card. I just had a few hesitations with it. But the fired coach is not one of them. The fired coach, I think, helps the LSU spot. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. The plays one more time. Let's get back on track tomorrow, man, because this has been bullshit. On planet bullshit, whatever. I forget what the Step Brothers quote is. We're going to be on Texas Tech minus the points, minus 11 or whatever. BC, I know how ugly that one is. Red bandana game, baby, plus 10.5. Yukon plus 8.5. Missouri plus 7. And Auburn, I guess you could wait on that and see if you can get the 7. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I'd still do it at 6.5. Maybe put a little bit less money on it. But Auburn to finish off the slate. Let's get some wins. Learn to Toad on Twitter. Learn to Toad on Instagram. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Like, subscribe to the channel here. Give me some positive comments. Always appreciate it. I appreciate you guys hanging out too, man. Also, listen to me on audio. That helps me out as well. Good review on audio on Apple and Spotify. That helps me out. Covered in Uke on YouTube as my Uke channel, so you can check out my Uke content there as well. And patreon.com/learntotode. You can help me out there, and you get bonus Uke content. Spotify feed that I know I'm like 2 covers behind on that. My voice has been dead, so I haven't been doing covers recently, but I got to get back to it, obviously. This show is making my voice dead, though, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I just have to stop shouting into the microphone, you know what I mean? Can you guys still hear me when I talk like this? I don't know. I get all excited. I got to figure out something. I got to get used to not talking as loud and maybe just ramp my microphone up a little bit. Maybe that's what I got to do. And then, what else was I going to say? I think that's it. That's it. The Patreon. And you get a request at the highest level as well for Uke. That's going to do it. I'll be back in the morning because it's going to be a long show in the morning probably too because we got college basketball, though it's not going to be one of those monster college basketball Saturdays like we're going to get soon. But I got to talk about that, and there will be NHL is usually big on Saturday, and I think kind of a limited NBA card, but I got a board. But I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. We're going to try to bounce back in a big way tomorrow, so let's do it. Let's get some wins tomorrow. Let's get some sleep right now. Peace until tomorrow morning, guys.